Hello and welcome to an all-new episode of Anime Brain Freeze. We are your majestic hosts.
I am John.
And I'm CC. And when there's just too much cool anime to watch, we got you covered. Summer season is already well underway, but before we can give you our impressions of all the cool new shit, we have to wrap up the cool old shit by talking about our final show from winter season, which we will do in this very episode. And it's a mouthful, baby. Fate Grand Order, Absolute Demonic Front Babylonia. So, Fate King John and myself, the tag-along Fate Court Jester, will tackle that monster momentarily.
I hate that I'm the king of fate, but I also love it, but I hate it.
You deserve that title, for better or worse.
Nasu!
And since this is our season finale, we will also give out our award for Best of the Season. But first things first, let's talk about the shows that didn't make the cut this time around in the Chop and Drop. All that right here in a couple of seconds, so don't pause the pod. We'll be right back. Alright, yeah, here we are on the Chop and Drop, and we're gonna, as usual, quickly talk about the shows that did not review and why. John, do you want to head us off?
Yeah, sure. The first one is Oda Cinnamon Nobunaga.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it started off kind of silly, kind of cute. The ending sequence had the actual doggos, and it was nice because we like doggos. Mm-hmm. The show, its entire existence is boiled down to one joke. Mm-hmm. Did you know that Nobunaga got reincarnated as a Shiba Inu? And that's the joke.
It's a good joke, maybe, but
it's a good joke the first time.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's like, 12 episodes? 12 full-length episodes? Really?
How?
Like, maybe if it was, like, 5-minute episodes, I'd have been like, okay, I could watch this. But it was, like, 12, 23-minute episodes. I think I got through episode 2 or 3, and I was like, no, I can't. No, I'm done.
Okay.
So.
All right.
That's that. What you got?
The first one I got is Blade of the Immortal. Or just Immortal. The reason for that is time. Because I dropped that. Not necessarily because I wasn't interested in the show. I was interested enough in it. In fact, it was a keeper in the fall sneak peek last year. And it got 26 episodes something, so would have been due for a review this season. But I let the episodes pile up and then didn't have the time or will to binge it and draft up a review for it. Probably a good show, even though I've heard mixed things. But it just didn't pan out this time. I might go back to it sometime next season, maybe. I don't know. Next season we got, due to COVID interferences, like slim pickings in terms of reviewable shows, but we'll see what we'll do with that. So that is not yet determined. And we got a lot of stuff coming out of hiatus, so a lot of shit to watch, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, Blade of the Immortal didn't make the cut, even though it looked very interesting. Maybe next time. Sometimes even good shows get axed. Can't do anything about it. Limited time in the schedule. John, what's your next chop and drop pick?
My next one is Hatena Illusion.
Okay. Yeah, I remember that show. You were not hot on that, even in the sneak peek.
I mean, I was initially not hot on it because the female main character was like, I immediately hate you. Shut up. You're annoying. Stop. Mm-hmm. All of that was compounded. So the first episode, I was at least able to be, but the production value is there. It looks pretty good. Then the second episode hit. Oh boy, that second episode hit. And the drop in quality was so dramatic that it was actively distracting, and I didn't even finish the second episode.
Oh boy.
Like, there's a part where it's like, I think we forgot to animate this character's mouth. Oh, I could just paste it on in post.
Wow, that sounds like Berserk levels of visual atrocities.
It looks bad. Like, you know what? The less said about it, the better. It was just not good. It was a bad scene.
The next pick, or next two picks on my list, kind of the same reason as Blade of the Immortal. It's pretty much the same for all my maybes from Winter Sneak Peek. I mean, Blade of the Immortal was technically from fall, but, these two shows as well. It's Pat and Darwin's Game. Those two had potential in a way. But when I had to decide which shows to finish watching with the limited time I had, those two were not high on the list. Be it because of scenario or because what I saw of the characters and everything. So I dropped them. It was just like a matter of, hey, I only have time to review this many shows this season, to watch this many shows this season. So even though they looked interesting, can't check them out any further. Don't have the time to watch them on a weekly basis. So I had to let them pile up and then binge them on some free weekend or something. And yeah, for those were the ones that were dropped on the side of the table because, just not enough space in the schedule. So I don't know if it was, it's a bummer because, considering how I felt about some of the shows I watched, ID Invaded and Inspector, maybe I should have switched those out for those two. Maybe that would have been better. I don't know, but I had to make a choice. I made that choice, maybe with regrets now, but, that's how it turned out. So that's why I dropped those two. John, what's your next one?
My next one was Asteroid in Love.
Ah, yes.
It was one of those cute girls doing cute things shows. I mean, Room Camp was on at the same time, and I was more invested in those characters. So I was like, I'm going to gravitate towards the characters I know and like. This show, it's fine, but it was sort of like, I don't need two of the same thing at the same time, I guess.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, I rarely, very rarely go for these shows anyway, but I can see the appeal. But when you're like, okay, no, that's... not this one, then I can understand.
It was something that I thought was worth checking out, but
All right. So
what you got?
Yeah, the last one pretty much is Dorohedoro, which I dropped because of its stylistic choice of blending mediocre CG characters with hand-drawn artwork, which I abhor. I think that stylistic choice needs to fucking go away. It needs to die. It needs to burn in a fucking dumpster. But, Dorohedoro employed it, which is really sad to me because I thought the story, the characters, that world had a lot of potential. I liked that the grimy, super trashy, very splattery style of the show in itself was really cool. That's totally up my alley. But mixing these CG characters with that artwork and everything, it just didn't work for me. It didn't look good. It wasn't on the level of, in terms of CG, level of Beastars or Land of the Lustrous. I know that that's a high bar. It's the highest bar, kinda, aside from the stuff that Ufotable does. But still, it's like, okay, if it's not that, I'm not gonna watch it. And especially not if it really, like, combines those two things, which makes it even more distracting. So, no thanks, which is, like I said, a bummer. I was really interested in that show, but I won't make the effort to check it out if I watch every episode and cringe at it all the time. So, didn't go back to that either. And maybe, I don't know, down the road we'll get another adaptation that is just, in terms of style, is more up my alley. I don't know. And if not, well, can't watch all the good shows. So, whatever. It happens. And then, for me, that's basically it. I didn't drop any of the other stuff like Haikyuu or No Guns Live. For that, I'm just waiting for the respective second course or seasons of those to appear on the scene so I can review them as a batch. And same goes for other shows like Sword Art Online, which, we will still check out because we hate ourselves. But those will turn up eventually. Food Wars as well, of course, once it comes out of hiatus, and second season of Fruits Basket, all that good stuff. And that's gonna it's just returning now. It's gonna return in a couple of days or weeks, so we'll see when we get to that. But that's it. That's basically it for me. John, do you have anything left for the chop and drop?
I got one more, and it's Azure Lane.
Ah, okay.
The show started off so strong, and I was having such a good time with it, and then the production limitations kicked in.
Mm-hmm.
The show went on about a 3-month break, and when it came back, they didn't really address any of the animation problems that it had after the first couple episodes. It had a strong showing coming out of the gate, and then it didn't go Hatena illusion levels of bad, but it didn't look good. They also thought, hey, we have to get every waifu on screen at some point, and it's like, no, you can have a second season for that. You could do that. No, we have to get every girl on screen. Oh, okay, all right.
Everyone is here, John. Everyone is here.
Yeah, and it really suffered because of that. It was trying to tell this, I feel like, somewhat interesting story about, like, war and PTSD, and one of the
oh God, okay. I didn't expect that.
They were trying to do some stuff with it, like one of the main characters, the USS Enterprise. She's like one of the big Eagle Union. That's the United States
Obviously,
Navy.
yes.
For those of you who aren't in on the the parallels, and she's like, she fights as hard as she can. She doesn't take a rest at all. Some of the other ship girls are like, man, isn't the ocean great? But she's all like, no, it's not, because I've only ever known the ocean as a place of conflict. And it's like, oh, that's okay.
All right.
And it's sort of, they tried to do something with that, and it doesn't ever really feel like it super came together, which I was kind of disappointed in. So I guess it is what it is.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's nice that they, try to do more than a marketing vehicle thing like merchandise. Hey,
they gave it their best shot.
All right. Hey, I see what you did there. I guess, kind of. Anyway, all right. That's it for the Chop and Drop for this season. And we're going to head on over to our final review.
All right. Fate is a big franchise.
No kidding.
It started with a simple visual novel that everyone seems to forget was also an eroge, but that's fine. We don't worry about it.
Oh, I remember. I mean, I haven't played it, but that is very stuck in my mind.
That's like, I had a discussion with a mutual friend of ours the other day. He was like, when are we ever going to get original Fate proper? And I was like, like that scene with J. Jonah Jameson and Spider-Man.
Yeah.
You serious? No, we're never going to get that. But this is Fate Grand Order Absolute Demonic Front Babylonia. I recited that name from memory.
I don't believe you.
Which is based on the mobile game Fate Grand Order, which has become a fucking titan in its own right. Holy shit. So, what is this series about?
Good question.
So I guess before talking about the actual plot synopsis, it bears mentioning that this is coming in the middle of the story. Like almost close to the end of the story, really.
Oh yeah, boy is it ever. This is also where most of my problems with the show stem from, but we'll get to that. Yeah.
So, because Babylonia is the seventh major story in Fate Grand Order. Not the second, because we got, a few years back, there was Fate Grand Order First Order, and it was an adaptation of basically the game's tutorial in Fuyuki in the first Singularity, which was, the logical place to start. What's the next logical place to go to? The seventh story.
Of course.
So
was this? I think the reason was because at that point in time, the seventh story was like the current thing happening in the game, right? Because it was a cross promotion thing. I mean, no. I mean, I can see no other reason why you would do that.
No, because the main game has 8 singularities.
Yes.
Fuyuki, Orleans, Septim, Okeanos, London, America, Camelot, Babylonia, and Solomon. No, I didn't know that from memory. Thanks. And then after that is content called the Lost Belt. Lost Belt was on its second or third iteration in Japan, and they were like, yeah, no, we're gonna do Camelot. We're not gonna go to Orleans or Septim. It's like,
all right.
So I guess jumping ahead slightly, but they announced an adaptation of Solomon. Camelot is going to be a movie series, and who the fuck cares about singularities 2 through 5? Am I right? Who cares? I don't care. Do you care?
Raise his hand. I would have cared a lot. Being introduced to certain characters probably would have been nice.
Yes.
Good God. Where to even start?
So, plot synopsis. And then we'll get into more complaints, probably.
Oh, yeah.
AD 2016. The foundations of humanity have been incinerated by the Mage King Solomon. Chaldea, a secret mages organization with the mission to preserve humanity's future, foresaw mankind's extinction in 2015. Thus commenced the operation to repair the singularities in history caused by holy grails dispersed across time and space. Operation Grand Order. Using the ray-shift time travel technology, Chaldea's last master, Ritsuka Fujimaru, and his demi-servant, Mash Kyrielite, have traveled to and resolved 6 singularities. Now they depart for their most dangerous destination yet, a civilization in the Age of Gods, BC 2655, Mesopotamia. Ritsuka and Mash soon discover that the demonic beasts roam the land, attacking people and towns. Amidst chaos and terror lies humanity's last defense, Uruk, a fortress city that acts as the front line for the battle against the beasts. The battlefront is commanded by none other than King Gilgamesh, the king of heroes, who sought aid from heroic spirits and took on the role of a mage to protect his city. Along with Gilgamesh and the summoned servants, Ritsuka and Mash must protect Uruk from the magical beast's onslaught and defeat the 3-goddess alliance who aims to eradicate humankind. All the while, a greater threat looms over Uruk, preparing for its awakening. It sure is a video game, isn't it?
Oh boy, is it ever.
There was also an episode 0 before the show started airing that covered a little bit of MASH's origins.
I would say it's fucking essential.
Yes.
Because it also introduces us... it's MASH origins, and it introduces us to Romani, who's kind of also an important part in a way, at least from the setup. I mean, it straight out spoils the bad guy... But
don't worry. First Order did as well.
Yeah, exactly. And First Order is essential as well because it introduces us to Ritsuka and establishes more of the basic setup. Like right from the get-go, you thought you could start watching this series with episode 1? You fool! It's like, no. There's all this stuff that you should watch beforehand. And really, I mean, I liked First Order a lot. I thought there was a nice setup that was really promising. It's like throwing you pretty much right into the action. It was like a bunch of shit going wrong and, a bunch of shit happening, and it's very enjoyable. There's a lot of, a lot of shit going on. And it's like, hey, this is actually pretty damn cool. Also, it looks great.
Well, that's Les Deuce. They fucking produced the hell out of that movie.
Yeah. And I really like First Order. And if the series had continued, with the coming episodes after that, with Second Order, with Third Order, and not just jumped to 7, that would have all of this would have been a different story. So, but we get to that.
Yeah. So I was kind of immediately not sure about this show or the series because it was being produced at Cloverworks, and they've made a little bit of a reputation for themselves. But then they did stuff like Promise Neverland, which
Indeed.
you said was very good. I guess they did that Bunny Girls Senpai show. I'm not saying the whole damn name because it's such a mishmash, poor translation.
That's also supposed to be a really good show.
Yeah, I heard it was really, really good too. They did the How to Raise a Boring Girlfriend movie, which I would still like to watch because I really enjoyed that series. And then they did other good stuff like Ace Attorney and Persona 5. And I think you started to watch it or mentioned it at some point. Millionaire Detective Balance Unlimited.
Yeah, that is this season. That looked really good in terms of production values, but the story, I was like, oh, this might just go somewhere.
Just throw money at your problems.
Yeah, exactly. Throw money at your problems. Be a big asshole.
They also worked on a little bit of Fairy Tale, and they worked a little bit on Darling in the Franxx.
Shut up. No, I mean, all of that came before Promised Neverland, right? I think.
Most of it, yeah.
Yeah. So for a high-profile series, they got really good stuff going. A bunch of the other stuff was more like, okay, this is cash-in shit. And so I wasn't, after watching Promised Neverland and seeing the production values and that, I was not too worried for this show. But I would say they went and outdid themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's an understatement. Like, holy shit, this show really is a looker. Holy fuck. If there's one thing I can say about the show that is, like, totally recommendable, and is without a doubt fucking fantastic, it's the production values of this show. This show looks fucking incredible.
Even if you don't want to watch it, you probably find a million hits for it on Sakuga blog.
Oh yeah, and rightfully so.
Yes. So the show is directed by Toshifumi Akai, who, as far as I could tell, hasn't really done like any big directorial work, but did some episode direction on The Idolmaster Cinderella Girls, which was not as good as the 2012 series, but it at least had the production values behind it. Did some anime direction on some of the Monogatari. Birdie the Mighty Decode, which I know is one of your big faves.
Oh yeah, I love it.
Brotherhood.
Third season went. Sorry.
Brotherhood Final Fantasy 15, which is, great companion piece to the game. Maggie, both seasons. Toradora, which someday I'll watch. But yeah,
I've heard good things.
Akai has some good work under his belt.
Yeah, and I gotta say, like, the show in general looks fantastic, like super sharp character models, great backgrounds, great architecture, artwork, all over the fucking place. All looks very lush and populated, a bunch of different character models. But, the highlight of the show are the fucking battles, because the fight choreography in this show is sheer madness. Like, it's ridiculous.
It is nuts.
Yeah, like there are several things happening, like the fight against Tiamat is a highlight, or the one against Quetzalcoatl. Like, all of this is movie quality. Like, it's ridiculous, and it has a level of consistency that not even Apocrypha could sustain. So
it's like when we were talking about the Crunchyroll Anime Awards, whatever they're called, I don't remember. And one of the best fight nominees was a fight from this show, and we couldn't talk about it then because the show was still airing, and it was a huge spoiler. But fuck, man, that one should have been at the top.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, was one of the fights nominated from Demon Slayer? I think so, right?
Oh well, Demon Slayer got in just about every fucking category.
Well,
so
if
yes.
it deserved one for for something, not for a lot of the other things, but for that fight, maybe. So that would have been a tough battle, but I agree. Fate Grand Order, a bunch of Fate Grand Order should have been up there. This is the highlight of the show, is the animation. It looks fantastic. All the fights, like pretty much all of the fights, look fucking insane. There's so much Sakuga. It's a blast. It's like this giant ass summer blockbuster that ran through fall and winter. But it's ridiculous. This is what you go in to the show for. I mean, you might want to go in for some other things, but you probably won't get them. So if you feel like watching this show, do it for the fucking animation, do it for the action, because then you will have a good time.
If you want to go into this show, play the game first.
Yeah, I guess. No, I mean, depending on what you want to do, what you expect. If you want to understand the show, if you want to like feel any way attached to the characters, then yeah, maybe play the game first. Yeah. Whew. Okay, we'll get to that. But yeah, animation-wise, nothing to complain. Like, nothing at all. This is a fucking mind-blowingly good looking show.
So music was composed by a couple of people. Keita Haga, who's worked on Fate before, in particular, Carnival Phantasm. It still counts as Fate.
Yeah.
It counts as Fate.
If you say so.
As well as Fate Stay Night, the original adaptation of Fate Stay Night, and the TV reproduction. I mean, you can say what you will about that series, but, it had great music. So, yeah. And one of the others was Ryo Kawasaki, whose work I'm not as familiar with, but he worked on stuff like Altair, A Record of Battles, which I think we may have mentioned in passing before.
Maybe. Just in general, the soundtrack in this show fucking rocks. Like, it's this epic rock opera thing, which is extremely up my alley in general. That's just the kind of cheese I dig. And, this show has a bunch of it. It's really entertaining. And also the sound editing, the sound work in the show is really great. It's really impactful. If you have a surround system, turn up the bass. And there's a lot of crunchy, heavy, impactful sounds during the battle. A lot of explosions. A lot of super attacks hitting with maximum force in terms of sound effects. The production values in the show, both in terms of visuals as audio, as well as audio, are fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, we don't talk about sound directors enough. But the sound director of this show was one Yoshikazu Iwanami. And if you recognize some of the sound direction in this show, it's because he worked on pretty much the entirety of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Yes, that's it. That's very recognizable. Like his brand of sound effects, where it's got this like crunch sound, and then you get this big boom around it and everything. That's really his thing. He does that pretty much in all of his stuff. I think he worked on Planet With as well, and that had the same kind of sound effects too. It's like, hey, I recognize this. This is the JoJo Bizarre Adventure guy, and yeah, it was. So same here, and yeah, he's great. It's fantastic. It always adds to the action, the way he does the sound. So yeah, good stuff.
Man, thumbing over his credits real quick, there's a bunch of stuff that I've watched that he's done the sound design and direction on. It's like, oh, okay, I guess I've been more drawn to your work than I thought.
Yeah.
But yeah, musically, in the sound department and in the animation department, this show is solid. It's super strong, but it's Fate. And you know what? The overarching story in FGO isn't as obtuse as some other branches of Fate. I honestly feel that. But you're coming in, if you're watching this with no context for any other part of FGO, you're going to be fucking lost, boyo.
Oh, yeah.
That's why I say, hey, play the game first.
Yeah, but that's still like fucking 5 episodes that you didn't, 5 story arcs that you didn't, watch. That's still a lot of time to spend on a game.
Oh, no, I get that.
Yeah.
And it sort of serves to amplify that this is a show for the people who played the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And who already had the understanding of certain things going into it. Like, 2 of my notes I wrote under pros and cons, because it falls under both, is that it's definitely a love letter for the fans, but it's definitely for the fans.
Yeah, that was my guess. Either that or it being a promotional vehicle to be like, hey, this shit is happening in the game. Let's show some awesome animation for people to pick up the game and be like, hey, you can play that as well right now. And it's like, okay, but apparently it's just, like you said, a love letter to the fans to be like, hey, this is your payoff. You now get actual, something actually good looking out of that. And
this is where all your gotcha money went.
But again, yeah, I get it. Why would you start, or kind of start? I mean, there was First Order, but why would you make the first big series episode 7? I mean, the fans would have liked a version of episode 2 as well, right? Is episode 7, like Singularity 7, the most popular one in the game? Was there like a poll for that?
I mean, from what I hear, for a couple of our friends, I mean, one of them I don't think plays FGO anymore, but they had both played it to some extent, and they said that the second and third singularities are kind of like, but I mean, why not just roll them together into one thing? So you could be like, oh, you could just do this and get it out of the way, so then you can get to the good shit. Because I hear like America, Camelot, and Babylon are like the awesome stuff, and then we got Solomon on the horizon, which is apparently the big crazy shit before Lost Belt starts happening.
Yeah.
I mean, Fate is a perpetual content machine. So, they have no shortage of material to make into an anime, both within the confines of Grand Order and within this fucking media empire that it is now. And, that's fine. That's good. I love me some Fate. But you gotta do it right, man.
Yeah. And there was just in itself, there is some promise in this universe, like Fate Grand Order as a thing, like with the characters and everything. Like, you got this new demi-servant gimmick with MASH, which could have been a neat twist on, the old master-servant dynamic. But, in context of the show, in context with MASH and everything, which, by the way, MASH Kyrielite is a Tomino-ass name. Like,
you're not wrong.
Might as well have been the main character's name in G-Reco or something, like
Dr. Romani Arkman.
Yes, right? That's a thing. But she is too much.
Olga Marie Animosphere.
Yeah, she is back. There's a different version of her. She's a different version than what we saw of her in Inspector Waver or whatever the real name of that show was. But, she is back. We have, like with all of Fate, we have a bunch of characters that we've seen before in other Fate shows, but they have different roles here. They're sometimes completely different characters. They just look like the characters we already know.
Yeah.
And, like I said, the whole setup with MASH and Fujimaru from, like, episode 0 and then First Order is kind of interesting, but they're both too much of a blank slate. I assume because of the game origin. Do they have established character development in that game, or are they your fill-in characters for you as the player?
Well, as far as I understood, MASH gets, character development as you go along. It's, you are the master with all of the servants traveling through time. It's you. That's why.
So you are Fujimaru.
Yes, that's why Fujimaru comes across as really flat in the anime. I mean, he's fine, but It's not like, and I feel like this is a good comparison point. It's not like with PSO2 episode Oracle where Ash was a character. He wasn't like, oh, he's the player character stand-in, which he is, but he is also an actual character in his story.
Yeah. And, there is a bunch of problems with the characters in this show in general. And some of that is because, the game origin with Fujimaru, where it's like, hey, this doesn't really have a character in the game, and they didn't bother to give him one for the anime. And the other stuff is like, hey, we miss out on, most of the character development for the other characters. Like, for Mesh, like you said, she might have gotten some character development in the previous Singularities, but we don't see that. She gets, she gains some powers from servants, some other servants' power, but not parts of their personality. And we see some flashbacks to her talking to some of them, but we are not really that's not really part of the story. Like maybe having her have inner monologues with them, after she assimilates them or whatever, that make them and her become more of a human being or more of a character by getting to know these many different people and their life stories would probably have been a good approach. But we don't get that. Like we get her doing shit, but we don't really learn a lot about her aside from the stuff that we see in episode 0. And yeah, that's kind of a bummer. in general, I would have liked this kind of PSA segment after each episode that tells us the identities of any new servant. I mean, you can do some of them in First Order. Like the first one they encounter is obviously Medusa as a Lancer this time, I think, right? Then we got, I guess Caster is still Kuchulain, only as a caster instead of a Lancer to switch it up, which is a neat idea in case, you have already seen Fate Stay Night. Saber is Morgan Le Fay, I assume, or Arthur corrupted by Morgan, I don't know. But I have no idea who Archer is. Is it still Shiro? I'm too lazy to look it up, actually. There were a bunch of questions popping up in First Order, which I expected to get a payoff for, kinda, in a way later. But that doesn't happen. Maybe in the other Singularities, but we don't see those.
I mean, you do if you play the game.
The game, yes. Yeah, I guess that's the thing here. But we have some interesting characters in this thing. John, do you want to list off some of them?
Well, first off, we get Merlin, who. Oh man, he's a weird case because he sort of exists everywhere except for the times when he was alive in his actual life. So it's like Schrodinger's cat. He's both alive and dead at the same time. It's so it's so weird.
It's a loophole. It's his loophole to become a servant. Since he has not been born yet, he's technically dead, so he can be summoned as a servant. This is so hilariously stupid. I love it. It's like, how the fuck do we make this happen? Oh, yeah, that's how it... It's great. I like Merlin as a character. He was one of the few characters, kinda, that, first of all, was enjoyable every time he was on screen. And he gets just enough character development to understand why he's on the side of humanity in this war. And I mean, he's seen all of the other stuff, all of the Singularities. He's kind of like the character that can jump anywhere he wants to, basically, and sees everything and is kind of like the witness and sometimes interferes and everything. But, when he talks about that shit, it's like, yeah, but we didn't see that. It's like, I would have liked to have been part of that. And that's kind of a bummer. But aside from that, he's a fun character. I always liked when Merlin was around and his, interactions with the other characters and some characters taking jabs at him and vice versa and everything. He was very enjoyable, in my opinion.
Yeah, especially he and Anna don't always see eye to eye.
Mm-hmm. No. Still, they hang around each other, so...
They have this weird symbiotic relationship, but, it makes them interesting together because Anna may or may not be another character that we had come to know before.
Yeah. in this or another universe of Fate. Who knows? I don't know. How did you feel about the payoff for that? I thought it was alright, but they could have done more with that, I think.
I feel like there was a lot of payoffs they could have done a lot more with. Or they could have fleshed out better, or could have been more interesting, or Jesus Christ. And God, we're dogging on this so bad, but it's not a bad show.
It's enjoyable, but mostly because of, all the eye candy.
Yeah.
That's the thing that keeps you around. It's not the story. It's not the characters, because there are barely characters in there. Fun characters, sure, like Merlin, like I said. Anna can be fun too. And some of the servants we meet, but there's no depth here. Aside from maybe one character, and that's probably my other highlight, that's Ishtar. I liked her. I liked the developing friendship / romance blossoming between her and Fujimaru, and, the other side of that. It gets a lot of screen time for a while, and it's good and necessary. And the surprise payoff for that in episode 13 is actually pretty neat. But it feels like we missed out on a lot of development between Fujimaru and Mash in the chapters that came before this one. So even though, those two are two mains, their relationship feels more shallow, especially when contrasted to the stuff between Ishtar and Fujimaru in this series. And it's like, okay, what about our two main characters? Did something happen? Did we get more development for them in the other singularities? And we probably did, but we haven't seen that.
See, several things happened. You just gotta play the game. And that's the fucking refrain for this.
Yeah, you gotta play the game. And that's... I kind of don't like that approach. I mean, I like that they did something for the fans and everything, but maybe take all the other viewers who might be interested in a really well-animated Fate show, like me, who don't want to play a fucking gacha game, which
with one of the lowest pull rates on the market.
Yes. Also, I assume Mash's Noble Phantasm is related to the Camelot chapter, or the servant she fused with is from that time period. Is it Galahad? I have no idea. Anyway.
Yes.
It would have been nice to see that integral part of her story before we got to this one, right? This is so backwards. This is all like just a fucking weirdly wrong-headed approach to like creating a series from a long-running franchise. Just picking one of the latest chapters and adapting that before everything else. I really did not like the approach they took here.
That would be like if, this really cool manga, Dragon Ball, is getting an anime. I can't wait to watch it. And they start from the fight with Frieza and Namek. It would be like that.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. There are so many examples for that. Like in the 4th episode, Mash mentions talking to Amadeus. I assume Mozart. We have never met that person. So she is referencing something that was apparently of importance to her character. We have no idea what she's talking about. This is like, how are we supposed to feel anything for that and to relate to that if we don't know what she's talking about? It's ridiculous. Also, there is a bunch of things where it's like, okay, this is a game adaptation. This is a very unelegant game adaptation. Like, throughout the whole thing, you get the feeling, isn't time of the essence here? Why are the characters sitting around waiting for Gilgamesh to give them fucking new quests instead of investigating by themselves?
Listen, man, you gotta wait those 8 hours for your stamina to come back.
Yes! What the fuck? No, this is not the game! This is the fucking anime! You do something different with that. You don't just let the characters sit around and just fucking make pottery or something. Did you come here to find out shit? Like, fucking do something, you lazy assholes. And I don't mean fucking fetch quests.
No, but you have to earn the king's trust by doing fetch quests, and you have to, like I said, rest those 8 hours to get your stamina back, or else you got to pay out those quartz, man. Got to keep paying those quartz.
Like, fucking get the king's approval by doing an awesome battle or something, and then he sees your prowess or whatever, or be a tactician on something, and then it's like, oh, okay, but fucking quartz. Like the survival of mankind is at stake here. Why are you dilly-dallying around?
What's your take on Gil in this adaptation?
I mean, I liked him more than in any other adaptation. I mean, he was supposed to be kind of an asshole in the other adaptations, right?
Yeah.
And in this, he's kind of sympathetic. Like, you get his approach to it. He's still, in terms of character, he's still like this big, grandiose, boastful, arrogant kind of king. But you get the feeling that he cares more for his subjects than he does in the other shows. In the other Freight incarnations, it seems to be more about him. Like, I am the king of heroes. I am the big cheese. I'm the guy. You have to obey me. You have to cower before me, mongrel. That's his thing. And this is more like, yeah, I'm doing all of this to care for my people. And yeah, that's not something I got from him in his other incarnations. So I like that. I thought that was like, hey, okay, finally a version of Gil I can relate to in a way that, and I can like. And he has a bunch of badass scenes in this as well, where it's like, hey, I'm willing to step in. I'm willing to, make sacrifices. I'm willing to do what's necessary to save my people or save my kingdom. And that was cool. Like, there's also, at some point in the show, he has like his big Independence Day / Braveheart speech. And that was, first of all, very well delivered by the voice actor. But also, we got this epic score, like, rising in the background. And that actually gave me chills. Like, that was really well done. And that wouldn't have worked if you didn't at least like Gil a bit in this adaptation. I think he was, when he is kind of becomes a part of the party later in the story, I liked him a lot. The party setup of Fujimaru, Mesh, Ishtar, and him was probably my favorite one. Like, especially Ishtar and Gilgamesh constantly taking jabs at each other. That is a lot of fun. Like, those two work really well together. And yeah, I think Gil was a high point of this show. I think it was really fun. Well, how did you feel about him?
Yeah, I thought, it was a nice change other than seeing asshole Gil.
Yeah.
Because it's like, when he was, before he became a heroic spirit, he was like, yeah, I actually cared about my people, and he didn't be like, hey, I need your help. He was like, I need you to show me that you're worth me asking for your help. And it was like, but you still recognize that you need help. The Gil that we knew from the original FSN would not be like that. He would just be like, yeah, I'm going to just cut you and you're dead.
Yeah, exactly. And not even Fate Zero Gil. I mean, he was more complex by the virtue of that part of the story being written by Gen Urobuchi, I would say. Was more an interesting character, but he was still an arrogant asshole. And, his approach was interesting, where you have this, which was one of my favorite episodes of Fate Zero, which I always like to mention, where he, Ryder and Saber sit together and have like this conference of kings where they talk about what it means to each of them to be a king.
Oh, I forgot about that.
That's a fantastic episode. There's like a bunch of people probably hated that because there was no action in it really. But it's just these three characters, these three kings, well-established, well-worn kings, who all have a different idea about what it means to be a king. And I love that. I fucking love that episode. I think it's fantastic. Like, Ryder, who is like, no, I want to inspire my people. I want to be the strongest. All my people are my family. Like, everyone. Saber is like more the distance. I can't be part of the people, but I feel... I have to take care of them, and I need to be like this solemn, strong king, this knightly king, right? With honor and everything. Like, I have to put my needs behind my people, right? They have to come first, but I have to be strong. And Gil is like this big ass who's like, no, I have to be. I'm the best of the best, and my people are there to serve me. That's the role of a king. I have to stand as this ideal, as this thing that they kind of want to aspire to, but being like unattainable in a way. And this is all I have to be. And I have to, live in luxury and all of that to be a real king and all of that shit. And it was super interesting. And I like that. But again, Gil in that came kind of across as an asshole, like an arrogant, selfish, egocentric asshole. The worst king in a way. You could understand his point of view, but it was still like, no, dude, that's not. I'd go with fucking Ryder or Saber here. And in this, it's kind of different. It's hard to say if it's like, hey, okay, this is the version of Gil that later becomes a more cynical, arrogant version when he gets reincarnated as a hero spirit, or if this is just a completely different version. But yeah,
I'd be interested in seeing what triggered that change.
Yeah, if it's connected at all. I mean, some of the Fate franchises, I guess, are tangentially connected, but I don't know if Fate Grand Order is really connected to any of the other incarnations of its characters. Like, if there's something. So, I know there is Inspector Waver and Fate Zero and Fate Stay Night Unlimited, Fate Stay Night are somehow connected. But, that Fate Grand Order, just like Apocrypha, seems to be kind of like an alternate universe take thing. Maybe. But I'm not sure about that. I mean, you Fate diehards out there might correct me on that one. So, but speaking of Gil, he's part of one of the most hilarious things and scenes in the show, which is that the show brings up the problem with the missing story arcs itself. Like there's this part where Mesh and Ritsuka tell Gilgamesh stories about their past adventures in episode 5 or something. And he comments that all of this is boring to him because he wasn't part of their adventure and thus has no emotional connection to their stories. Guess what?
That's some meta commentary.
Gilgamesh is me! I am Gilgamesh! I wonder if this was a self-aware joke, which would make their story decisions less baffling, or if they just accidentally pointed a giant glowing neon finger at the show's most glaring problem. But that was hilarious to me. I laughed out loud when I saw it. I was like, yeah, Gil, I get it. Fucking get it. Fucking same. Also, from an outside perspective, the thing that seems most fun about Fate Grand Order would exactly be the time travel stuff and meeting all these different iconic characters in their respective time periods. So why would you skip over the majority of that? It's mind-boggling to me.
No, don't worry about it.
Yeah, and we get filled into the most important stuff through short flashbacks, but it's a very incomplete and inelegant solution to catching you up on all that shit that happened before. And it would have been totally unnecessary if they started after First Order. We're like, okay, now let's go to the second singularity and do the shit right. And they didn't. It was like, nope, here's episode 7. Tough luck for you who didn't play the game. What?
Even if it was just like, an
Rude.
OVA or something.
Yes. I mean, they're doing stuff now, which is even more baffling. Like, after doing the 7th episode, they're going back to Camelot in movie form, which should have come before this. It's like, what? Why not put if you were planning to do Camelot all along? Why not do that first before you head to Babylonia? What? What are you doing? Makes no sense.
There was an appearance of a character towards the end of this series that it was cool, I guess, but, one of our friends asked me about it. Hey, dude, wasn't that character awesome? And I was like, yeah, but who is he? Huh?
Yeah.
And
I assume you were talking about the guy who looks kind of like Death incarnate, or is supposed to be that.
Yeah, so that's supposed to be King Hassan, who showed up during Camelot.
Great. Yeah, that was one. Yeah, also, again, yeah, same, John. So, one of the scenes that, you're right, that comes at the very end, where it's this, like, big climactic battle, and at the end of the show, he clearly has the aura of, like, this badass that's coming in, and you're like, okay, who is this guy? You don't really learn about him. You don't really know about him. It's
like, I just pushed the win button. You're welcome.
That's also one of the things that bugged me about the final stretch of the episode. Like, the show has been pulling a lot of random rules out of its ass from the beginning, But in the final set of episodes, one of the characters even cheats their way out of those rule sets. So it all feels very contrived and like made up as they went.
It also feels like a whole bunch of it was, these characters are going to make bad decisions that don't really pay off. And it's like, what are you fucking doing?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, there's pulling rule sets out of your ass, and then there's pulling cheat codes out of your ass to break these rule sets you pulled out of your ass. And they do that. And I'm like, how is current day Merlin there? How is Servant Gil there? What is happening? What? The characters say, only living things can exist in that space. So Fujimaru is the only one who can go there. And 2 minutes later, 2 minutes, one of the servants, which now we know was, I think, King Hassan, right? Is like, fuck it, I'm going in. We're doing it live. And I'm like, what? Make up your mind, show. And like, that's coming from someone who enjoys the constant breaking of rules in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. So, it got a bit too much.
But we expect that from JoJo's because, what's your power level? Fuck you. That's my power level.
Yeah.
Everyone is breaking the rules all the time, and that's the conceit of every battle. Everyone is overpowered all at once. How do you do this? You have to play mind games. That's where it comes in. And here there's no mind games, there's no power levels. It's just, we're just going to throw some shit at the fucking wall until we figure out what will actually beat Tiamat. And
yeah. But I think, exactly. That's true. And it bugged me, but I think that the thing that bugged me the most in general, and that also relates to that character, is no attachment to most of the characters. It's just like, you got a couple, Merlin maybe a bit, Ishtar maybe a bit, and another character that is heavily related to her in a way. And also, the interaction, that triangle between Ishtar, her, and Fujimaru is very interesting. It's cool, it's cute. Those are the best parts of the show, in my opinion, aside from all the, animation fireworks and everything. But all the other characters, it's like, we're spending time with them, don't really get to know them, and the time we spend with them is very short and very precious. Like, it would have been nice to spend some more time with the other side servants, like Leonidas, for example, to give them some character development and make their eventual exit from the stage more emotionally relevant. We don't get that. So we don't feel anything. We haven't really spent... Instead, we're getting fucking fetch quest, right? We don't really spend quality time with these characters. They're hanging around. The other characters maybe talk to them, and it's 1 or 2 scenes. But that's it.
I feel like the most we got out of anyone was probably Ushiwaka, and even then it wasn't much.
No, it really wasn't. Was there, but it's like, okay, the payoff for that is not great. It looks good, but, on an emotional level, there was just not enough there. And also, there's no emotional connection to the final antagonist of the show. So it's just that kind of world-ending threat, which doesn't really have a personal relevance to any of the characters in the show. They are not really related to that threat. It just appears, and it's like, okay, this is... If we don't do something about that, the whole world is going to end. So we have to get rid of it to save the world, universe, timelines, or something. And there are a lot of shows that do that, but here it felt like it was almost completely lacking any emotional stakes. And that's a problem. And I believe most of that stems from this being the 7th part in now 8, 9, 10 part series. And up to this point, we had only seen the first part of the story. And we're missing all the texture in between. At least when it comes to our main 2 characters. And we probably would have gotten to know more about Merlin and everything. And, the character from Camelot that now appears in this one. It's like, okay, how are you expecting me to feel anything about this show? Aside from yelling fuck yeah at the screen when, cool explosions happen. Because I didn't get that. And that's a bummer, because that show could have been really cool if we, started it the right way.
I'm sorry, did I say there were 3 lost belts? There's 5 now.
Oh, God. I wonder if they'll even adapt that.
On the way.
the final episode starts with the two characters saying, this is a story about us, when it really isn't. I wish it was, but it's not. Not in this version. Not with most of the meat of the story so far missing. And yeah, I don't understand why they did it that way. I mean, you told me that it was about, hey, for the fans, which is nice and all. But I'm pretty sure, like I said, the fans would have liked a well-animated version of all the previous singularities as well. So this feels so fucking backward.
That's kind of like going... This is going to be an odd pull, but the 2012 Idolmaster series, definitely a show for the fans. But there's enough of a setup in there for you to get to know pretty much all of the cast and what drives them. And, you can do things right. You don't have to, like, rush to a certain part because, oh, this is the thing that people like. Yeah, the people who have the inside knowledge, as it were, will appreciate that. But, fucking...
Yeah, it seems misguided. It seems wrong-headed. It's a bummer. Because, again, just from the standpoint of production values alone, this show is worth a watch, definitely. Like, it's mostly a fun popcorn blockbuster, but with not much substance to it. And it could have had that substance. It probably has that substance in the game, at least to some extent. But we're not part of that if we haven't played the game. And that's not how you should do an adaptation. That's, you fucking adapt that shit to the medium now that it works in that new medium, and for the people who haven't witnessed, who haven't consumed the other version of it, like the source material. It's supposed to be for a new audience. And I mean, also for the people who like the source material, of course. But, you have to take the people into account who have not read that source material. And it has to work for both parties. And they only made it work for one. And that sucks. That's not how you do that shit. And it's a bummer. I really wanted to like that show more than I did. I liked it, but only for the action, only for the fireworks, only for the big bangs. Those were a lot of fun big bangs. Like I said, there are a bunch of fantastic... And I'm an action guy. I love that shit. And I thought the show was spectacular in that regard. There's so much cool shit to see. But there is nothing, or almost nothing, in between to string you along. So you really have... Every time they get to the story part, or not story part, because they don't really do anything with the characters, and they talk about shit that has happened before, which we didn't see... It's like, okay, when's the next battle gonna happen? Yes. Get to the good stuff.
You're not wrong.
And that's not supposed to how it's go. Like I said, there are some bits in there that are good, with Ishtar, with Fujimaru, with the other character that I don't want to give away. But yeah, aside from that, there's just not a lot here to, sink your teeth into. And there could have been. I mean, not all Fate series are like, whoa, big character drama. They're not all Fate Zero, definitely not. But there is more substantial character stuff in Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade Works. There is more substantial character stuff to an extent, or at least fun character bits in Fate Apocrypha, in my opinion. Even though the two main characters of that are also pretty boring. But there's so many fun side characters in that, especially Shichigo and Mordred. We got a semblance of that here, but not really. And those characters are not featured enough. So, yeah, character-wise, this show is a bummer. It's just not enough there, in my opinion. Not enough. And, the maid story could have been cool. Some of that, the real main antagonist of the entire franchise could be interesting. We don't really know anything about him. So we know who he is. The show gives it away pretty quickly, but we don't really learn about what his deal is, what his real motivation and mission is, really, and what's going to happen. And I mean, I guess we gonna get filled in on that with, the Solomon adaptation and stuff like that. But yeah, this is just, I don't know. This went about it in an entirely wrong way. So, yeah, that's a bummer. That's a bummer.
My final rating for this show is Ishtar is the best Rin out of 10.
Yeah, probably. She's really fun. She has a kick-ass introduction. She's a fun character. She has probably the most character development, quote unquote, aside from maybe Gilgamesh. She is fun. The other character that is related to her is interesting. Just that whole dynamic. That was, character-wise, that was the high point of the show. But aside from those two, we really don't get anything. So, yeah. Come for the animation, come for the animation, stay for the animation, stay for Ishtar, maybe, and Gilgamesh. But
I mean, she doesn't get much fleshing out either, I guess. But, Quetzalcoatl, she's cool.
She's fun. She's a fun character. But like you said, there is not really much to her character. She's just, the fun muscle. And that's kind of it.
Speaks in broken English and Spanish because,
Yes, sure, why not? Yeah, I don't know if I would, recommend that show to anyone who isn't invested in the Fate franchise, hasn't played the game. You need to know what you're getting into, which is the 7th part of a story, which you, if you can find first and watch First Order, have only seen the first part of. So you're missing all the in-between stuff, which in my opinion is essential and necessary to relate to these characters, to understand where the story is going, to see all what the time traveling stuff is about and have fun with that. And so
it's weird to say that Fate Extra did this better.
Which I haven't watched.
I mean, that's just my 2 cents. I feel like it makes sense to compare Fate to Fate.
Yeah. Yeah, speaking of that, you didn't like Apocrypha, so did you like Fate Grand Order better?
I don't know. I guess as a self-contained story, even for all of the stuff that really put me off, Apocrypha is objectively better. But this, it has the hook to be like, hey, check out the rest of the story. But, I start playing a mobile game and then I forget about it a day later. So
yeah,
that's me. And that's my relationship to mobile games. The gacha ones anyway. Like, this is going to be random, but Yoko Taro's mobile game Sinnoh Alice just got a Western release. I played it the first day. It's now 2 weeks later, and I haven't touched it since because I put it out of my mind.
Yeah, I don't play mobile games. I'm just not interested in it, especially not the gacha game stuff. I don't care about rolls, pulls, and everything. I don't give a shit about all of that. That's just in terms of game system, that's something that actively pushes me away.
No, but spend more money though.
Yeah, it's just
don't you love that your $60? Excuse me, now they're going to be $70 games. Also have microtransactions in them. No. Thank you, sports games, EA and 2K.
But there have been some mobile games that have good stories and that got good adaptations. The first thing that comes to mind is Rage of Bahamut Genesis. I think that was also a mobile game, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
At least it was done by Cygames, so I assume it is. But that at least that first season, Genesis, I didn't finish Virgin Soul, but and I heard mixed things about that. But Genesis was fantastic, so I really enjoyed that show. So you can do something good with mobile game adaptations, and I am really sure that if they had adapted this the traditional way, started with the first Singularity, then the second, then the third, and so on, this would have been in a fucking engaging series. If they had done all of this with those production values, and we actually get some context for those characters, we get some development for these characters, we meet everyone they meet on the way, and then get the references to these earlier encounters relating to, the stuff that happens in Babylonia and everything. Like, oh yeah, that makes total sense. That's her journey. That's his journey. They have development. They have arcs. They don't really have arcs in this. Because those happened before, or we get the final part of their arcs now, but we don't get the build-up for that. So if that didn't happen, if we have gotten a show that was adapted the traditional way, the story that was adapted the traditional way, I'm pretty sure I would have enjoyed Fate Grand Order a lot. Because it got all the ingredients for a good show that I enjoy. All the high fantasy shit, all, the Fate servants, historical figures, figures of myth and legend, in different incarnations. We got fantastic battles. We got an amazing soundtrack, amazing visuals. We got everything. Everything I like is in this show. So for all accounts and purposes, I should like the show. But character-wise, story-wise, this is such a fucking letdown because we're missing out on all of the stuff that came before it. And that's a bummer. What can you do? So I don't really know if you haven't played the game, dear listener, if you are not really invested in the franchise, if you should tackle this. If you are just interested in great production values, if we're like, hey, I wanna see a good looking action shows, by all means, check this out. You will probably not be disappointed. This is a really good action show just in terms of action alone. But if you want some context, if you want some character development, if you want some emotional substance in this, you probably won't get that. I didn't get it. John didn't really get it. So, yeah, that's Fate Grand Order. Absolute Demonic Front Babylonia. Yeah, that was the title. So, I don't know if I'll check out Camelot. I don't know if I'll check out Solomon. It feels like getting filled in on this shit afterwards and being disappointed with it firsthand is like, yeah, what? Are you gonna get to like 2, 3, 4, 5 sometime, or are you not? Maybe if they do, I will check the series out again then and be like, okay, now I'm gonna watch all the other stuff in order. Haha, in grand order. So,
get out.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Not sorry. And then maybe rewatch Babylonia and be like, oh yeah, now I understand all this shit. Now I understand all the reference and everything. But like this, I'm not gonna watch the series backwards. I'm gonna watch 7, 6, and maybe 5 if they do it, maybe 4 if they do it. Time travel might work this way, but not fucking anime. Don't do this to me. John, what is your...
It's all a part of Nasu's grand plan.
Mm-hmm, yeah. John, what is your final verdict and your recommendation?
It was alright, but it was only alright. Simply because, it was lacking all of the things that it needed to do. So, I mean, if you're invested in the game, you'll get a kick out of this. You're going to love it. But for everyone else... go hit up Sakuga blog. Mm-hmm. If you are still interested in watching it, though, I mean, it's streaming fucking everywhere. Like, literally everywhere. Funimation, High Dive, Crunchyroll, Verve, Anime Lab, Wakanim, Netflix. So you can find it and watch it very easily if you're so inclined. But, I don't always like saying this, but I feel like it's true. Your mileage may vary.
Yeah, agreed. All right, that's it for our final review of this season, but we can't let you leave until we have talked at least a bit about our favorite shows from this very season. So, it's time for... Best of the Season! Yeah, okay, best of the season time. John, we didn't review that many shows this season. It's gonna be even less next season, but after that, it's probably gonna be a fucking boof. Fucking onslaught.
An explosion.
Yes, but not having reviewed that many series this season doesn't mean that the choice isn't a difficult one, at least for me. But how about you?
I mean, choice for me, I feel like, is clear. But, I feel like we talked about other good stuff this season. Like, I mean, My Hero Academia was half good, I guess. When I don't think I'd choose that, though, to be honest. Sorry. I really liked what PSO2 and Orphan, they did interesting things with their respective adaptations, and I respect that. Made in the case of PSO2, it made its retelling, at least different enough from the game to warrant watching. And Orphan definitely took its source material, gave it a swift kick in the ass, and said, we can do this better. I think my pick for the season is probably Somali and the Forest Spirit. It's just, it's a story with a lot of heart, and it's got, this big journey of this makeshift family and, all the friends we made along the way. But they're interesting friends and neat characters, and just the journey is filled with all sorts of lush vistas and landscapes, and it was just... And it was, even though there were some harrowing moments in there, it was still just a show that was easy, chill out and just vibe out to. And I think, there's some value in that with how fucking crazy the world has been lately. I think it's a good, just mellow out show. So I think that's my pick for this season.
Yeah, I want to say that Somali has probably in one episode and several of those more character development than Fate Grand Order has in its entire 21. So, yeah. Okay, yeah, totally agree. I kind of want to give my pick to My Hero Academia Season 4, because frankly, it's fucking ridiculous that series hasn't gotten this award yet. But...
Have we not?
No, we have not.
Oh, shit.
We have not given it to My Hero Academia yet, and season 3 should have gotten it.
Yeah.
But I think for me in that season, the pick went to Recreators, which I don't regret, not at all. And I think both of us picked that, actually. I'm not sure. Or in another season, it was beaten by Attack on Titan. Anyway, yeah, but season 4 was definitely not as strong as season 3 or maybe even season 2, so it feels weird to hand it out for that season. That seems like a cop-out where it's like, hey, it hasn't gotten it yet, so I'm just gonna give it to it now. But it feels like season 4 is not really deserving of that. I liked that season. I liked it. I liked both parts, but it had its problems. And I feel like season 3 was a lot better. So if anything, without compromise, I should have given it to season 3. I didn't. What can you do? A better series came along the way. So...
I mean, it's shonen. It'll be there until the eventual heat death of the universe.
Yeah, so maybe I'll give it to it eventually. We'll see. There's still hope for My Hero Academia, but right now it can't get a fucking break, can it?
Hey, it's like we passed over Symphogear once, and then when it came back around, it was the time.
Well, yeah, true. Well, that was also, yeah, you're right. It was its weakest season, so it was that. So it didn't feel right to give it that. So yeah, and definitely yes. Then it's got its comeuppance. Yeah. So for me, also it comes down between Somali and the Forest Spirit and Keep Your Hands Off Azoken. And like John said, Somali is a fucking great series, and while definitely Somali was more engaging on an emotional level, I think Eizouken is going to take the cup for me because it's an unusual show about an underexposed topic, creating art, conveyed in an incredibly creative, funny, and sometimes beautifully surrealist way. It's a one-of-a-kind show that deserves all the recognition it can get, because it's not necessarily, aside from the creator and everything, I think it's not necessarily a higher profile show. It's not one of the big shonen action titles or one of the big, super big adaptations. A lot of people like it, but I still feel like it should get this award just to make people aware of it and watch it and be like, oh shit, this is a fucking cool show about making anime. And tackling, after Shirobako did the production side of things, this also does a bit of production things, but it goes more into the creative process, which, again, was the thing that was more interesting to me than, the actual work environment and everything, which, again, this show also tackles, but it's more interested in the creative process and how that works, how the mind space of those of the people who work on this kind of stuff works. And it was more for me, and it's, like I said, conveyed and portrayed and staged in a really interesting, creative way. And I really enjoyed that. And again, Somali engaged me more, or I was more engaged with Somali on an emotional level. I felt more for these characters than I did for the characters in Eizouken. But still, those were great characters in Eizouken, and I feel like, as a whole, that series deserves to be the best of the season for me. So I'm going to pick that. And yeah, I guess that's it for Anime Brain Freeze for winter/spring season, whatever. Our determination of that is always a bit muddy, but, because we got the sneak peek for spring season in the beginning, but then we review shows from the previous season, so that's how it goes for us.
What even is time?
Yeah, oh god, if the past month have made any question more relevant, I don't know which one it is. What is time indeed, John? But yeah, I guess that's it for us, but we'll be back in 2 weeks, because like I said, the summer season is already running, and there's a bunch of new interesting shows and a bunch of shows coming back from hiatus. So while we're not going to discuss we're not going to discuss the shows coming back from COVID hiatus in the sneak peek, but there's a bunch of new stuff to get to, I guess. And we're going to talk about that, and looking forward to that. Until then, stay not frosty because it's fucking summer, but stay hydrated. And wear a fucking mask, people.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a wrap on the 96th episode of Anime Brain Freeze. All the music in our show is from the Double Dragon Neon soundtrack by the amazing Jake Kaufman. Please go to vrit.bandcamp.com and check out his awesome work. Our show is available on most of the popular podcast services, but it's always worth visiting animebrainfreeze.com for a review index and more. Leave us comments and questions on YouTube, follow us on Twitter at AnyBrainFreeze, or send an email to animebrainfreeze@gmail.com. We would love to read your feedback. Thanks for tuning in, we hope you had a good time, and please join us again on our next episode. Macht's gut!
So long, everybody.
Next time on Anime Brain Freeze!
This wonderful world is abound with delicious food to eat and plenty of friends to make.